500 years ago, a man who had been tortured, stripped of everything, and exiled to a farmhouse in the Tuscan countryside sat down at a wooden desk and wrote a letter to his only remaining friend. In that letter, he did not complain. He did not beg. He described something far more dangerous. He described what life actually is, not the version your parents sold you, not the version religions preach, not the motivational fairy tale where hard work always pays off and good people always win. The raw, operational blueprint of how human beings function and how the world devours those who refuse to understand it. His name was Niccolo Machiavelli, and the uncomfortable truth he encoded into his writings has been misquoted, sanitized, and deliberately buried for 5 centuries because power does not survive when ordinary people understand its mechanics. What Machiavelli discovered was not political theory, it was a diagnosis of life itself. And by the end of this, you will see every relationship, every failure, every betrayal you have ever experienced through a lens so precise it will feel like someone turned the lights on in a room you have been stumbling through your entire life. But there is one principle buried deep in his work, something most scholars skip over entirely, that changes everything about how you approach the next decade of your existence. The Letter from the Dead. December 10th, 1513. A 44-year-old man sits in the Tuscan village of Sant'Andrea in Percusina, roughly 10 kilometers south of Florence. 14 months earlier, he was the secretary of the Florentine Republic, a diplomat who had negotiated with kings, commanded militias, and sat across from the most dangerous men in Italy. Then the Medici returned to power. He was accused of conspiracy, arrested, subjected to the strappado, a form of torture where the body is suspended by bound wrists behind the back until the shoulders dislocate. He was dropped 6 times. He did not confess because there was nothing to confess. They released him, stripped him of his title, sent him to rot on his family's small farm. And here is where most people would have collapsed. Here is where any ordinary man would have surrendered to bitterness, to wine, to the slow decay of irrelevance. Machiavelli did not. In a letter to his friend Francesco Vettori, he described his daily routine. In the morning, he managed his crumbling property and argued with firewood merchants over pennies. In the afternoon, he walked to a local tavern, gambled with the butcher and the miller, shouted over card games so loudly the neighboring town could hear them. Petty, vulgar, beneath him. But then evening came, and this is where the letter transforms from autobiography into revelation. He wrote, "On the coming of evening, I return to my house and enter my study, and at the door I take off the day's clothing, covered with mud and dust, and put on garments regal and courtly. And reclothed appropriately, I enter the ancient courts of ancient men, where, received by them with affection, I feed on that food which only is mine, and which I was born for." Read that again. A man covered in dirt, humiliated by fate, ignored by the world. But the moment he entered that room, he refused to be small. He dressed for the encounter. He treated the conversation with dead philosophers as the most important meeting of his day. And in that room, stripped of wealth, status, and power, he wrote The Prince, a book that would reshape the Western understanding of power, human nature, and reality itself. Why does this matter to you? Because Machiavelli's life is the first lesson in his philosophy. He did not theorize about adversity from a palace. He wrote the operating manual for life, while life was actively trying to destroy him. And the first principle he extracted, the one that anchors everything else, is this: life does not reward goodness. It rewards accuracy, not accuracy of aim, accuracy of perception. The ability to see people, systems, and yourself without the comforting distortion of what you wish were true. Most people die never having achieved this. They live inside a story where loyalty is returned, effort is recognized, and the universe has a sense of justice. Machiavelli called these people raw material for someone else's ambition, not because he hated them, because he had watched with surgical precision how the world actually operates. And it operates on a logic that has nothing to do with fairness. The nature of the machine. In the Discourses on Livy, Machiavelli laid down one of his most disturbing observations. He wrote that all men are evil, and that they will act correctly only when compelled. Most people hear that line and flinch. It sounds cynical, extreme, misanthropic. But he was not making a moral statement. He was making an engineering one. Think of it like gravity. Gravity is not mean. It does not hate the man who falls off a cliff. It simply operates. It is a force. And if you understand it, you can build bridges, aircraft, skyscrapers. If you deny it, the ground does not soften for you. Human self-interest is the psychological equivalent of gravity. It is not a flaw, it is the engine. When Machiavelli said men are evil, he meant that every human being under sufficient pressure will prioritize their survival, their comfort, their status over yours. Not because they are villains, because they are wired that way, and the exceptions you cling to. The friend who would never betray you. The partner who truly loves you unconditionally. Machiavelli would say, you have not yet applied enough pressure to test the hypothesis. This is not bitterness, this is liberation. Because the moment you accept this operating principle, you stop being shocked. You stop being wounded by the predictable. You stop blaming individuals for behaving exactly the way their nature dictates. And you start building your life on a foundation that can actually hold weight, not on the quicksand of other people's promises. In 1494, Florence experienced this lesson in real time. The city had been ruled by the Medici for 60 years through a combination of cultural patronage and financial manipulation. When Charles VIII of France invaded Italy with an army of 30,000, the Medici crumbled overnight. Piero de' Medici, Lorenzo's son, handed over Florentine fortresses to the French without a fight, desperate to save his own skin. The citizens who had praised the Medici for decades turned on them in hours. The palace was looted, the family was exiled. No one remembered the art they had funded. No one remembered the festivals. The machine of self-interest activated, and decades of loyalty evaporated like morning fog. Machiavelli was 25 when he watched this happen. He never forgot it, and neither should you. Everyone in your life is loyal to the conditions that make loyalty comfortable. Change the conditions, and you will see what was real and what was performance. This does not mean you should trust no one. It means you should understand the architecture of trust. Trust is not a feeling, it is a structure. And like any structure, it requires maintenance, inspection, and the honest admission that no material lasts forever under enough stress. The war you were born into. Here is where Machiavelli's philosophy diverges from every motivational speech you have ever heard. He did not believe you could become anything you wanted. He did not believe in unlimited potential. He believed something far more dangerous and far more useful. He believed that life is a war between two forces, and your fate depends entirely on which one you feed. The first force he called virtue. This word has been mistranslated for centuries as virtue. It is not virtue. It has nothing to do with being good. Virtue is closer to effective force, the combination of skill, cunning, decisiveness, energy, courage, and strategic intelligence that allows a person to impose their will on circumstances. It is the quality that builds empires and saves the condemned. It is the muscle that pushes back against chaos. The second force he called fortuna. Again, not fortune in the modern sense. Fortuna is the blind, indifferent, destructive torrent of events that no human being controls. Disease, economic collapse, the accident of birth, the betrayal you did not see coming, the opportunity that arrives 10 years too late. Machiavelli compared fortuna to a flooding river, violent, unpredictable, and capable of destroying everything in its path. And here is the part that should keep you up tonight. He argued that fortuna governs roughly half of human affairs. Half. That means half your life, the outcome, the result, the ending, is completely outside your control. No amount of discipline, planning, or brilliance will change it. But the other half belongs to virtue. And that half is where everything is decided. Most people waste their virtue, their actual capacity to act, on things that don't matter. on arguments with strangers on the internet, on relationships that have been dead for years, on careers they chose to please someone else, on habits that fill time but build nothing. And then, when fortuna strikes, when the flood comes, they have nothing left. No embankments, no reserves, no structure. They stand in the open and beg the river to be kind. The river is never kind. Machiavelli's message is surgical. You cannot control what happens to you, but you can control whether you are prepared for what happens to you. And the difference between those two sentences is the difference between a life that is lived and a life that is endured. Francesco Sforza understood this. Born into a mercenary family in 1401, he had no wealth, no title, no noble blood. What he had was virtue, raw, unrelenting, strategic force. Over decades of warfare, political maneuvering, and ruthless alliance building, he made himself Duke of Milan. Not through inheritance, through action applied at the precise moment fortuna allowed an opening. He watched, he waited, and when the gap appeared, he moved with a violence that left no room for reversal. His success lasted because it was earned by the man himself. Compare that to those who inherit their position, who are gifted power by circumstance, and you will notice a pattern that Machiavelli documented across centuries of Italian history. Power that is given is always taken back. Power that is built endures. What does that mean for you? Stop praying for better circumstances. Start building the internal architecture that makes you dangerous regardless of circumstances. The job is not to control the storm. The job is to be the kind of person who walks through storms and comes out sharper on the other end. The Mask and the Face. Machiavelli wrote in chapter 18 of The Prince, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. And those few dare not oppose the opinion of the many." This is not a line about deception. It is a line about the fundamental operating system of human society. We live in a world of surfaces. People do not evaluate you based on your internal reality. They evaluate you based on the signals you emit. Your posture, your tone, your consistency, the stories other people tell about you when you are not in the room. And the terrifying truth is, the signal often matters more than the substance. Machiavelli observed that a prince must appear merciful, faithful, humane, sincere, and religious, and must actually be so when possible. But when the situation demands otherwise, he must be able to shift immediately to the opposite. Not because morality is irrelevant, but because rigidity in a world of constant change is a death sentence. Here is where people misread him. They think he is advising hypocrisy. He is not. He is advising adaptability. Consider Agathocles of Syracuse, a potter's son who became tyrant of one of the most powerful Greek cities in the ancient world. Machiavelli discusses him in chapter 8 of The Prince, and the analysis is bone cold. Agathocles rose through murder, betrayal, and calculated cruelty. He won. He held power for decades, and yet Machiavelli says his victories cannot be attributed to virtue. Why? Because the means Agathocles used destroyed the very fabric of trust that makes long-term power sustainable. He won every battle, but could never sleep without a guard at his door. He ruled, but he never governed. The lesson is surgical. You can lie, manipulate, and brutalize your way to the top. Many have, but you will spend the rest of your life maintaining the lie. The energy cost of sustained deception is catastrophic. Eventually, the mask fuses to the face, and you lose track of which one is real. Machiavelli's actual advice is far more sophisticated. Become the kind of person who does not need to fake capability, but who understands that the world reads surfaces, and who therefore ensures the surface accurately represents the depth beneath it. In your life, this translates to a principle that will save you decades of confusion. Stop trying to be understood. Start being undeniable. The people who waste years explaining themselves, justifying their decisions, defending their choices, arguing for their worth, are playing the wrong game entirely. The game is results. The game is demonstrated competence. The game is showing up with such relentless consistency that the surface and the substance become the same thing. When there is no gap between what you project and what you are, you become something very rare, a person who cannot be destabilized by exposure because there is nothing to expose. The cycle that eats civilizations. In Book 1 of the Discourses, Machiavelli describes something that will unsettle you, because you will recognize it in your own life. He observed that all republics, all empires, all systems of power follow a cycle that is virtually inescapable. Strength produces order. Order produces prosperity. Prosperity produces comfort. Comfort produces weakness. Weakness produces collapse. And from the rubble, a new cycle begins. He did not invent this idea. The Greek historian Polybius had described a similar cycle centuries earlier. But Machiavelli added something Polybius missed. The engine driving the cycle is human nature itself. The same ambition that builds the empire is the ambition that eventually corrodes it. The same hunger that propels the founder is the hunger that devours his grandchildren. Rome did not fall because of barbarians. Rome fell because Romans stopped being Roman. Luxury replaced austerity. Entertainment replaced civic duty. Bread and circuses replaced the disciplines that had built the republic. By the time the external threats arrived, the internal rot had already done the work. Machiavelli watched the same pattern consume Florence, Venice, Milan, and Naples over and over across generations, as if the script were written before the actors were born. Now bring this lens to your own existence. Every person goes through this cycle, most of them unconsciously. You fight for something, you build something, you achieve some version of stability. And then, slowly, without noticing, the comfort of that stability begins to dissolve the very discipline that created it. You stop training, you stop learning, you stop questioning, you coast. And the moment you coast, the river rises. Machiavelli's solution is one of the most counterintuitive prescriptions in all of philosophy. He argued that conflict is necessary for health. In the Discourses, he made the radical claim that the factional tumults of the Roman Republic, the constant clashing between the Senate and the plebeians, were not a weakness. They were the source of Rome's greatness. The friction kept the system alive. The tension prevented the rot. Applied to your life, the struggle you are trying to escape is the very thing keeping you sharp. The discomfort you resent is the immune system that prevents decay. The argument you avoid is the conversation that could save the relationship. Comfort is not the reward. Comfort is the anesthesia administered before the surgery you did not consent to. The art of necessity. There is a word that appears throughout Machiavelli's work with almost religious frequency: necessita, necessity. He argued that necessity is the great sculptor of human character. When a man is comfortable, he reveals nothing about himself, because nothing is being demanded. But place that same man under genuine pressure, strip away his safety nets, force him to act or perish, and you will see for the first time what he actually is. This is why Machiavelli observed that the greatest leaders, the sharpest minds, the most dangerous strategists, almost all of them were forged in deprivation, not privilege. It was not talent that separated them. It was the fact that necessity burned away every option except excellence. In the Discourses, he wrote that it may sometimes be the highest wisdom to simulate folly, not because foolishness is a strategy, but because when the world underestimates you, when people write you off, when the pressure to perform is removed, you are given something priceless: time. Time to build without interference. Time to observe without being observed. Time to prepare for the moment when you step out of the margins and into the center of the board. Machiavelli himself lived this. For 14 years after his exile, he wrote, studied, attended meetings of Florentine intellectuals in the Orti Auricellari gardens, produced comedies, composed poetry, and refined the observations that would eventually form the most influential body of political thought in Western history. None of it was recognized during his lifetime. He died in 1527, poor and largely forgotten. The Prince was published 5 years after his death. The Discourses, later still. He planted seeds in a field he would never harvest. And that might be the most profound lesson of all. Because most people will not do the work unless the reward is visible, unless the applause is audible, unless the payoff is immediate. Machiavelli would call this the mentality of the servant, the person who acts only when someone is watching. The person of virtue acts because the work itself is the architecture of the self, not because it will be rewarded, but because without it, you are nothing but an animal responding to stimuli. So here is life, as Machiavelli saw it. You were born into a world that does not care about you. Not in a hostile way, in an indifferent way. The river does not hate the house it floods. It simply moves. You were surrounded from birth by people who will love you when it is convenient and abandon you when it is not. Not because they are evil, because self-interest is the gravity of human psychology, and gravity does not take days off. You were given a body that decays, a mind that lies to itself, and a window of time that is shorter than you think. Half of what happens to you will be decided by forces you cannot see, predict, or control. And the response to all of this, the Machiavellian response, is not despair. It is precision. Build your virtue, not the fake discipline of alarm clocks and protein shakes, the real kind. The ability to see the world as it is and move through it without flinching. The ability to lose everything and still have the internal architecture to rebuild. The ability to read people not as you wish they were, but as their actions prove them to be. Prepare for fortuna. Build the embankments before the flood. Develop skills that cannot be taken from you. Cultivate relationships that have been tested, not just enjoyed. Save when there is no crisis, so that when the crisis arrives, you are not begging. Accept the cycle. Know that your comfort is temporary. Know that your strength will be tested. Know that the moment you believe you have arrived is the moment the ground begins to shift beneath you. And above all, act. Because Machiavelli's deepest contempt was not reserved for the wicked. It was reserved for the passive, for the man who watches the world burn from his window and says, "What can I do?" For the man who has been given arms, legs, a mind and time, and wastes all four waiting for permission. Machiavelli admonished that God wants people to act, not to sit around waiting for things to happen. Whether you believe in God or not, the principle is lethal in its clarity. The universe punishes inaction more severely than it punishes the wrong action. At least the man who moved incorrectly generated data. The man who stood still generated nothing. In that farmhouse in Sant'Andrea, covered in mud and debt and the memory of dislocated shoulders, a man sat down every evening, dressed himself in the only dignity he had left, and built something that would outlast every person who had tried to destroy him. He did not wait for the world to invite him back. He created something the world could not ignore. That is the lesson. Not strategy, not manipulation, not cold-blooded power games. The lesson is this: life will take everything it can from you. Your only move is to become the kind of person who can rebuild from whatever is left. 500 years later, his words still cut. His enemies are dust. And you are sitting here, reading a letter written by a dead man in exile, feeling something shift inside your chest. That shift is virtue waking up. Do not let it go back to sleep. YouTube has officially demonetized this channel. They want this content sanitized, softened, made palatable.